Okay, wow. I'm excited for this series, Un-Grinch Your Christmas. And I think about Christmas time and all the joys it's supposed to have, our culture, even the Word of God. It's a season of great joy. But why are we so stressed? Why is it so stressful? Why is there so many things that stretch us in so many different directions? And it's so easy for this season to create a Grinch in us, to create a person in us that we don't want to be, to create someone that we know that God doesn't want us to be. And so we're going to take this time, this month, this series, and we're going to try to take the Grinch out of our Christmas. And the sad thing is, man, a lot of us, we know we've been there. December is barely here, and some of us, we are already there, and some of us were just wanting, okay, we want the new year to roll around, we want December 6th to roll around, but we're going to do a couple things in this series to remind us what it looks like to make this season the season supposed to be. These are going to be reminders on our schedule, aligning our schedule, even financial, even our just focus in general. And if we do these things, I believe that Christmas will be exactly what it's supposed to be. It's going to be more enjoyable than it ever was and ever will be, right? And so we want to do that for this series. I want to share a story real quick. I grew up in Michigan. Most of you know that. Michigan's a very, very cold place. If you've never been to Michigan, you're not missing much. In the summers, it's great. In the springs, it is amazing. The lakes, the weather. But in the winter, it is horrendous. Do we got any amens in here? Amen. Okay. But Michigan's still the best sport teams on the planet. So just to remind you guys of that. Nonetheless, Michigan, the winters are terrible. It gets below zero, and then the wind chill is below zero quite frequently. Then you sprinkle a little flurries every single day. Then you take the sun away for 2 months, and it's pretty miserable at times. So I remember when I was younger, I had to ride the bus, right? I was kind of out in the country, so I'd ride the bus, and we used to have to be at our bus stop, which was a quarter mile away from our home, and we used to be there at 7 a.m. And you guys know in the winter, the sun don't come out, right? And so we were out there in the cold. The sun is not even out yet. And I remember one day in particular, we were sitting there. We had our jackets on, and it was my sisters. And then there were some of the neighbors who were at that bus stop as well. And I remember flurries started to come down. And so I'm looking up, okay, it's Michigan, whatever. And then a small wind gust started. I'm like, okay, this is miserable, like usual. And then it started to really come down. And so I'm like, oh man, this is not cool. Then I looked and the bus was late, which isn't completely unusual because in Michigan, if it's snowing, I mean, they just keep rolling, right? In southern Indiana, I don't know about you guys, but if an inch comes on the ground in the winter, everyone's like, we're shutting down. Like the world falls apart. In Michigan, they're like, what? There can be 3 feet on the ground within 2 hours. And they just keep rolling through. They drive crazy. They don't care. And so the bus being late, that's nothing. Well, then the wind started to pick up even more. And then the snow started to come down a little harder. And then it even started to sleet a little. And this is going to show my age. And some of you are like, oh, you're so young. Some of you are going to be like, you're so old. We didn't have cell phones at this time. If you had a cell phone, you were like one of the rich kids. Or if you had the internet, you had the dial-up where it made those noises like a dying cat, right? And so we didn't have those things. And we were at a bus stop. We were a quarter mile away. And so we had no way to find out if school was canceled. And so we stayed there. And it got worse and worse and worse. Again, we didn't have a phone to go to and call a number. And it said, this county is closed, right? We had none of that. And it got worse, and we're sitting there, and we're freezing until one of our friends' parents, they open the door, the front door, and they yell, hey, guys, school is canceled. There was no e-learning. We were just like, yes, we have no school. It was amazing. Well, then we had to start the walk home. And I'm not going to share one of those stories like, I was walking 10 miles with 20 pounds on my back. Like, I didn't do that. It was a quarter mile. Seemed like 5,000 miles. But I remember it getting so bad that I had to put my hood down. I had to like walk like this, lean into the storm, because it became a blizzard. Within a couple minutes, it was a full-blown blizzard. So we're leaning in. There's sleet, there's snow, there's wind. It's sub-zero temperatures by this time with the wind chill. And we're walking, and my feet are wet, and I'm leaning into the storm. I can't see anything. I never thought I would get home. And I'm thinking about this as I get home, and I'm just like, okay, I made it safe. But I was reading this week a story that reminded me of that winter season, of that winter walk. It was actually about farmers from the Midwest. I was reading about these farmers from the Midwest, and it was talking about how, again, they didn't have some of the modern technologies that we have today, but it was talking about how what they would do is they would tie a rope in the winter to their front door. And then that rope would lead out to one of their barns. And so in the middle of a storm, if they got caught in a blizzard, they would grab hold of that rope and it would lead them to their home. And this is like a thing I've never heard of before. Maybe you guys have heard of it, but it was saying that with these farmers, a lot of them, they got lost in their backyard. Many of them passed away. Some of them, it said they couldn't even see their hand from their face, right? Some of them passed away inches from their back porch. And so I think about us in the world we're in today and the chaos of Christmas and how easy it is to become a Grinch. And I thought of this. We live in a blizzard. Do I get some amens around here? We are living in a blizzard, and many of us, we've lost our way, and few of us have a rope. We don't have that rope to lead us back to our home, to safety. We're stuck in that storm, and we don't even know where we're going. We're walking around in circles. Some of us, we've lost our way spiritually in the whiteout of the blizzard, and we're just confused. Some of us, we are just in a blizzard because we don't know how to say no. We say yes to everything, and now we're just drowning in busyness. Some of us, we multitask so much, we're unaware that we're doing 3 to 4 things at once at all times. You guys know what I'm talking about? We live in a state of busyness. We're addicted to hurry. We're frantic. We're fatigued. We're starved for time. We cram as much as we can into an iPhone or an Android or a planner, to-do list. And the battle in life is not, oh man, how much can I gear back? It's how much more efficient can I be? How much more could I cram in my daily schedule? Yet not much changes. We end our days exhausted from work or school or raising kids or projects, and our free time on the weekends. What is free time? Hey, let's be as busy as possible in a 24-hour time as we can. And we don't find that rest. And so I'm thinking through this, and I'm trying to be practical. Many of us, we can't stop, even if we wanted to. The twisted thing is, even if we weren't busy, we would feel guilty thinking that we're wasting all this time. Even if we had nothing to do at all, we would feel guilty. Now add all this to the other things in life that appear. Add on things that happen that no one expected. I mean, I could name 4 or 5 this year, but add even some bigger things, the things that catch us off guard. And we wonder why we are so disoriented and confused and drained. It's so easy to become a Christmas Grinch when what we need is a rope to lead us home. That's what we need. God is offering us that rope. As we get lost in the season, He's offering us a rope that'll protect us from what I want to say is burnout. The reason why we become a Grinch is because we're burning out. Like, we're drained. We got nothing left. We're depleted. And so the question is, how can I not burn out in this season? Because I don't want to be that person. I don't think I've met anyone who says, I just want to be so grumpy during the holidays, right? I mean, I got some people out here smiling. Maybe you are those people, but I have never witnessed those people. And so I want to answer that question. How can I not burn out? What's it going to take for me to not be that Grinch in this season? In order to do that, I want to go back 3,500 years to a time of Moses in Egypt. And you guys know, some of you know the story, when Moses, he left Egypt, he brought the Israelites out of slavery, and he took them into the desert, and they wandered there 40 years. And during that time, God was reshaping the Israelites. I mean, when you're with a nation like Egypt, the powerhouse of the time, you're going to start taking on some of their customs, some of their culture. And it was almost like God was breaking them from those things, from the style that the Egyptians had for life. And so he wanted to reform them with a new God-given nature. And I thought about this. It must have been awkward for them. You know, here's these Israelites, they have this norm, and now that norm is gone. And then God is trying to teach them and say, hey, it's going to be weird, but it's just like a fish was created for water. I've created you to live a certain way. And they're like, man, we're just used to working this way and living this way and praising these gods and doing this. And God's saying, no, this is what I have for you. Everything you think you're supposed to do is not what you're supposed to do. I want to show you how to live. And so we get these things called commandments. And a lot of us, we know the 10 commandments, which are the commands that I believe God wanted us to have special attention to. But there's over 600 commandments in the Old Testament. But God chose to inscribe 10 on some tablets on a mountain. And he wanted them to focus on these. And so I want to put these up here. I want you guys to see them, and I want you to be watching for a couple things. And I'm going to skim through some of them real quick. It's from Exodus 20. And we got the first one, you shall have no other gods before me. And then you got the second one, you shall not make for yourself any idol. Then you have the third one, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. And we can go on the fourth one. It says this, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath day to the Lord your God. Goes on further to say this. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or your daughter, nor your male, female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that's in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. So we got the fourth one. There's a lot in there. It goes on, there's a couple more. Honor your father and mother. That's a big one. You shall not murder. Even bigger one. You shall not commit adultery. And then it goes on, you shall not steal. You shall not give false witness. And you shall not covet. So we have all those. We have the 10 commandments. And I want you guys to think about something. Did you notice one of them that was a little longer than the other ones? Guys, notice the fourth commandment? The one that was given the most special attention? It was the fourth one. It was about this thing called the Sabbath. And I want to put that up for you. Remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. What does holy mean? Set apart. Set it apart. You got 6 days. On the seventh day, set it apart. Make it holy. Rest. Don't do anything. Relax. I want you guys to remember that. Because I want to explain this for a minute. And we're not going to talk about Sabbath the whole time, but I want us to think about this concept. Sabbath comes from the Hebrew word that means this, to cease or to stop working. And so I thought about that. I'm like, okay, to stop working with 10 minutes, 20 minutes. What it was meaning was to take a 24-hour period each week that would be geared towards reorienting ourselves towards God. So the point was a centering day to realign us and to refocus us. So on the Sabbath day, as I'm studying this, it is our opportunity to reorient ourselves, but also we're imitating God. We're actually doing something that God had done. God had rested on the Sabbath day, so we are emulating who God is. And so I'm thinking about that, and it's to refuel us, to refocus us, all that stuff. And then I get practical. because I know what some people are thinking in this room now. Take a 24-hour time to do nothing. Can I get real with you guys? Having a legit 24-hour time to stop might be the most radical and countercultural thing we've heard this entire year. Are you kidding me? You want me to take an entire 24-hour span and rest and cease from working? Our culture knows nothing about setting aside a day of rest and rejuvenation and centering towards God. We live in a world of noise. We live in a world of distraction. Most of us, if we're honest, we fear this. I can't even imagine doing nothing. I was studying this. The average person cannot bear more than 15 seconds of silence. The average American cannot stand to even have a fourth of a minute of complete silence. It freaks them out. Do we got some people here that are like that? You're like, well, this is weird. I need music. I need to check my phone. I just need to do something to fill this moment of silence in my life. So this is where we get to. This is the point of the whole message, and we'll get practical for the second part. God created us physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, with the need for structural pauses. Guys, God created us this way. In every aspect of our life, He has created us to have strategic pauses in our life. A commitment to that structure that God has shown us and even He has done will protect the joy in this season that tempts us to overextend ourselves. This is what He wants. Otherwise, we're going to become a Grinch. We're going to struggle. We're going to battle things in our life. And so I want to get practical because most people are like, okay, it sounds good on paper, and yeah, I don't disagree, or yeah, it scares me. What does that look like? First thing, we got to stop. We got to stop. Embrace that you have limits. Embrace that you have limits, that God is God, and the world continues just fine if you stop. The world will function just fine, guys. God's been doing this a lot longer than us. It's above our pay grade, and it's gonna be okay. If we're not in control of our cosmos, of our world, things are gonna be okay. He's taking care of things. Relax and enjoy the fact that you're not in charge. I mean, I think about positives in 2020. We talk about negatives, positives. One of the best things about 2020 is that it forced some of us to stop. It forced us to. And what happened is certain things bubbled up in our life, and some of those things weren't pretty, but they've been there. They've just been layered and tuckered down under different types of activities in our life that have covered them, and God brought them up. Sadly, though, often before 2020, it took extreme moments in our life for us to stop. I think about people even on staff or myself or family members. Sadly, it takes a physical illness, or maybe it takes something like a heart attack or cancer or the flu or severe depression to get us to stop. But when we stop, guys, when we stop, that's when God shows up. It reminds us of the words that we see in Psalm 46:10, to be still, and to know He's God. Or I can think about Matthew 6, to stop worrying. Stop worrying, guys. Don't worry about tomorrow. Most people hate these things. But I was reading recently from an author, his name is Peter Scazzaro. He said the core spiritual issue in stopping revolves around trust. It shook me, guys. will God take care of us and our concerns if we obey him by stopping? A lot of us, we fear stopping because we don't trust that God is going to be the provision for the things that we are stopping, from the things and the tasks that we are not accomplishing. And so we're not trusting that he will take care of those concerns. When we trust God and stop, Jesus takes our loaves, he takes our fish, and he does something. We offer our insufficient things in our life, and he takes them and he finds a way to feed the multitudes. He takes what we have and he somehow, miraculously and invisibly multiplies them. You know, I was thinking about that and I noticed it's ironic because I'm preaching a sermon, right? The thing that came to my mind first was sermon preparation. When I started preaching and preaching every week when I was 23 years old, I remember, man, I got so much to do. I got to prepare the sermon. I got to study this. I got to do that. And I used to get frantic and get ahead of just the immediate moment of prayer to start it all. And so I'd get to work and I'd read this resource and I'll talk to this pastor and I would make this outline and I would forget to stop and to pray. And it took me years before I just, okay, Winsten, stop. And you guys know me well enough. I'm everywhere. I bounce. My mind, I got some ADHD like cray. And so it took me some time to say, okay, Winsten, stop, be still, pray. And it's amazing when I stop, when I pray, when I still my mind, in those moments, God stretches my creativity. He stretches the efficiency of the message and he uses it. Guys, do we trust God enough to stop? Do you trust God enough to stop? Second thing, once we stop, got to do something with that stop, right? We rest. Okay, rest, what does that look like? Everyone would say, okay, I can rest, but I can do all my errands, and I can do all my work, and I could still do some little work on the side. What do we stop from? I would say stop from technology. Some of us, we're in very competitive fields. We got to stop our competitiveness. We got to take 24 hours and be like, okay, I'm going to put this on pause, and because it takes a lot of energy. We got to stop our decision making. We got to stop our worry, our multitasking, our physical exhaustion. My favorite one, we should stop talking. Stop talking and be silent. My wife would say, yes, praise Jesus, right? Stop talking. My Christmas gift. No, but some of us, we just need to stop talking and be silent with ourselves. Dallas Willard, he's a professor at Dallas Theological Seminary. He called silence and solitude the two most radical disciplines of the Christian life. He said this about solitude. Solitude is this: the practice of being absent from people and things to be with God. Separating. To what? To be with God. So we're in solitude, and then silence, right? The practice of quieting every inner and outer voice to be with God. I think about that, and I hope some people have had those moments where you've had solitude, you've had silence, and you've experienced God. We have some of those examples in the Bible. One of the most eccentric moments that I've seen in the Bible is actually how God appeared to Elijah. If you know the story, Elijah is, at this time, he's in a suicidal depression. He's so down, he doesn't even want to live. Here he is, and the queen of Israel is trying to kill him. Her name was Jezebel. She's hunting him. And so he hides out. He's like, God, just take my life. And God says, hey, just wait, and I'm going to pass by you. Just wait for me in this cave. So some of you, you've heard this story. At this moment, God appeared to him, but in a very profound way. God went by him, not in the wind, Giant wind went by, almost like the wind that we hear and read in Job, but God was not in the wind. And then an earthquake happened, a giant earthquake. And he found out God was not in the earthquake as the earthquake that happened with the 10 Commandments. Then there was a great fire. And God was not in the fire like the burning bush with Moses. He was not in the fire. And then it says that God finally revealed himself to Elijah in the sound of a sheer whisper. He silenced the chaos in his life. He isolated himself in a cave. And he was able to experience the full presence of God. God spoke to Elijah out of the silence, and he wants to speak to us as well. Maybe we don't hear God because we haven't stilled ourselves to hear him, isolated ourselves to hear him. And so we stop. Then we rest. And this is the one I'm most excited about to share with you. We delight. When we stop, when we rest, we have opportunity to delight. See, after God had created his work, right? He said, it's very good. I was reading in this, the Hebrew phrase communicated a sense of joy, accomplishment, excitement with God. He's like, man, I did a pretty good job. Not too bad. I made a cow. Why did I make that animal have such a long neck? You know, like he was joyful with his creation. This is ludicrous in a culture that doesn't stop enough to enjoy the things that God has given us. It's all, what's next? Next task, next sale, next appointment, next project, next holiday, next day. It's always what's next. And so I came up with this phrase, we are a culture that is delight deficient. And a lot of it's because we don't stop enough to enjoy the moment. When we have strategic pauses in our life, it invites us to enjoy the small things, the little things that we would have never picked up on. You know, recently I was able to see some family members for Thanksgiving, and I went to my sister's house, and she had this beautiful home in the country, and she has all this acreage, and she has a barn, and she has this wooded area. And I don't know how it happened, but I have a bunch of nieces and nephews, and somehow I got stuck with them, taking them all in the woods. None of them are older than 7, and I had them all. There was, I think, 7 of them. So I'm going in the woods with all these little wee lads, and I'm running in the woods trying to catch up with them. And then I have my little daughter, Charlie, and I'm carrying her. And then I see one of my nieces, and she's like, crying. I'm like, okay. She's like, I'm going to get a leaf on me. I'm like, okay, you got to suck it up. Let's go. And so now I'm holding her hand, and I'm carrying Charlie. And it was almost like a military scene. You just saw them dashing left and right from tree to tree. One's bouncing up, almost like those hamsters that you hit with a mallet, and they're just appearing. You're like, how'd you get there? And so we're just walking. I had not a worry in the world. I was hours away from my home. I had a couple days off from work. I was just wearing my coat, hanging out with my nieces and nephews, enjoying the moment. And I remember just looking around, taking a deep breath and feeling peace. Just looking at God's creation. Seeing these little kids that are experiencing life together. Some of them for the first time, feeling like they're these jungle kids or, they're just in a place where they're not used to. And I remember the moment, I remember the joy and the delight I had. Some of us, we just need to walk slower. Some of us, we got to put our phone away. Some of us, we just need to take a deep breath and say, I want to enjoy the small things. Proverbs 14:30 says, a peaceful heart leads to health. To find that peace. Let me get deep with you guys. On every day we stop, we rest, we cease to work, we delight. I believe it's a sampling of something greater that awaits us. It's just a small sample. Not the Sam's Club samples. Better. A sample of what's to come. Our short earthly lives are put into perspective when we stop and we recognize that this is just a vapor in the eyes of eternity. This is just a glimpse of what's to come. God's given us this life. Let's enjoy it. Let's enjoy it. Let's be okay with slowing things down, stopping, resting, and delighting in what God has given us. God invites us to grab that rope, guys. He invites us to grab the rope in the blizzard. And some of us, we are in a blizzard. And we can't see anything in front of us, but we know that rope leads us home. He wants us to grab a hold of that, and he wants to lead us back to where we need to be. So as we end here today, I want to challenge you. Grab the rope. Grab the rope. Find time to strategically stop and rest and delight. Let's pray. Lord, help me to grab hold of you as the rope in my blizzard. You know, I need you, we need you. The idea of stopping, resting, and delighting in you seems honestly overwhelming when we have so much on the docket. But I know we need you. Show me the way. Teach us how to be prayerfully attentive to you. This idea of resting to help against burnout will require a lot of change in our lives. That's our lives that are already burdened. Some of us might think, where can I cut something out? Lead us, Lord, in how to take the next steps in this. Help us trust you enough to stop, to not try to run your world for you. Set us free to begin reorienting our lives around you and you alone. Pray this in Jesus' name.